His own soldiers betrayed him and fed him to the dogs. History is filled with tales of betrayal, but few are as shocking and brutal as what happened to one of antiquity's most feared rulers. This is the story of a man who conquered nations, commanded vast armies, and struck fear into the hearts of his enemies only to meet his end at the hands of those he trusted most. His own soldiers didn't just kill him, they fed him to the dogs. Our story begins in the ancient world, where power was everything and loyalty could be bought with gold or fear. The ruler in question had built an empire through ruthless ambition and military genius. He was known for his tactical brilliance on the battlefield and his ability to inspire fierce devotion among his troops. For years, his armies had marched from victory to victory, conquering territories and expanding his domain. But power, as history teaches us, can corrupt even the most brilliant minds. As his empire grew, so did his paranoia and cruelty. What started as strategic ruthlessness gradually transformed into senseless brutality. He began to see enemies everywhere in his court, among his advisors, and eventually, even among his most trusted generals. The turning point came when he ordered the execution of several high-ranking officers on mere suspicion of disloyalty. These weren't just any soldiers, these were men who had fought beside him for years, who had shared in his victories, and helped build his empire. Their deaths sent shockwaves through the military ranks. Fear replaced respect, and whispers of rebellion began to spread through the camps like wildfire. The soldiers who had once chanted his name in victory now spoke it in hushed, fearful tones. They remembered when their leader had been a source of pride and strength. Now, he had become unpredictable and dangerous, turning on his own people without warning or mercy. The very qualities that had made him a great conqueror, his ruthlessness and single-minded determination, had transformed him into a tyrant. As months passed, the situation deteriorated further. The ruler's demands became increasingly unreasonable. He ordered campaigns that made no strategic sense, wasting lives and resources on personal vendettas. He imposed harsh punishments for minor infractions and rewarded only those who fed his growing paranoia. The army that had once been a cohesive, unstoppable force began to fracture from within. The final straw came during what should have been a routine military review. In front of the entire assembled army, the ruler publicly humiliated and then executed a popular centurion who had questioned a particularly reckless battle plan. The soldier's crime? Trying to save the lives of his men. As the loyal officer's blood soaked into the ground, something snapped in the hearts of those watching. That night, in secret meetings held in dark corners of the military camp, a conspiracy was born. It wasn't led by ambitious generals seeking power for themselves. Instead, it was driven by ordinary soldiers who had simply had enough. They were tired of living in fear, tired of seeing good men die for no reason, and tired of serving a leader who had forgotten what leadership truly meant. The conspirators knew they had to act carefully. Their target was still cunning and dangerous, surrounded by loyalists and protected by his personal guard. But they had advantages too. They knew his routines, his habits, and most importantly, they had access to him. After all, who suspects betrayal from their own soldiers? The plan was simple but effective. During a night when the ruler was reviewing maps in his command tent, a group of his most trusted guards would strike. They had chosen this moment carefully. He would be alone except for a few attendees, and the isolation of his command post would muffle any sounds of struggle. When the moment came, the betrayal was swift and decisive. The guards he had relied on for protection became his executioners. But here's where the story takes its most shocking turn. The conspirators didn't simply kill their former leader and bury him with military honors. as might be expected. Their rage and resentment ran too deep for such mercy. Instead, they dragged his body to the edge of the camp where wild dogs roamed, scavenging for scraps and refuse. In a final act of contempt and revenge, they left him there for the animals to devour. The man who had once commanded armies and decided the fate of nations became nothing more than food for scavengers. When dawn broke and the camp awoke to find their leader missing, the truth quickly spread. Rather than horror or outrage, the news was met with a mixture of relief and grim satisfaction. The soldiers who had lived under his tyrannical rule felt as though a great weight had been lifted from their shoulders. But the story doesn't end there. The aftermath of this betrayal reveals something profound about human nature and the price of absolute power. The army didn't dissolve into chaos, as many predicted. Instead, they chose new leadership from among their own ranks, men who understood that true authority comes from respect, not fear. The empire itself survived the transition, though it was forever changed. The new leaders implemented reforms that prevented any single individual from accumulating such unchecked power again. They established councils where decisions could be debated and questioned, and they created systems to protect soldiers from the arbitrary cruelty of their commanders. This tale serves as a timeless reminder that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the fundamental human need for dignity and respect. The ruler's downfall wasn't caused by external enemies or military defeat. It was caused by his failure to understand that leadership is a responsibility, not a license for tyranny. The soldiers who betrayed him weren't motivated by greed or personal ambition. They were driven by something far more powerful: the basic human desire for justice and the refusal to accept treatment that stripped away their humanity. In the end, the man who thought he could rule through fear alone discovered that fear works both ways. His story echoes through history as a warning to all who would seek power. Remember that those who lift you up can just as easily tear you down. Loyalty cannot be commanded or demanded. It must be earned and maintained through consistent respect and fair treatment. And so ends the tale of a ruler who had everything: power, wealth, military might, but lost it all because he forgot the most basic truth of leadership. Those you lead are human beings deserving of respect, not tools to be used and discarded at will.